usually when you talk about a major sporting event, the narrative is pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah, exactly. You look at the final score.
Right, you analyze the 90 minutes on the pitch, and that's basically the whole story. But I want you to picture this instead. A global qualification campaign that spanned 899 matches.
Over 937 days. It's just mind-boggling.
Literally thousands of players, dozens of nations, all just fighting through sheer attrition for a ticket to the 2026 World Cup. And the very last team to punch their ticket. I mean, the 48th and final team did so in a way that honestly sounds entirely fictional.
It really does, ending an agonizing 40-year drought in the process.
Yeah, it's the absolute definition of a dramatic climax.
And to really grasp the magnitude of what happened here, you have to look way beyond the boundaries of a football pitch, because this is a story about national survival, tactical reinvention, and just the level of endurance that kind of defies conventional sports logic.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today is June 1st, 2026. We are just over 2 weeks away from a genuinely historic moment in global sports.
The epic return of the Iraq national football team to the World Cup.
Exactly. And for this one, we've pulled together a massive stack of sources for you. We've got dense tactical reports, deep scouting profiles, betting odds from Vegas Insider, and some really incredible boots-on-the-ground reporting from Al Jazeera and The Guardian.
So our mission today is to unpack the phenomenon of a team known as the Lions of Mesopotamia. We're going to examine their unbelievably grueling qualification journey, the radical tactical transformation they went through under their head coach Graham Arnold, and, that complex dynamic between their war-tested veterans and their European-trained rising stars.
And of course, what you can expect as they walk into an absolute gauntlet in Group I.
Oh yeah, it's going to be brutal.
It really is. So whether you are a hardcore football fanatic who spends your weekends analyzing low-block formations, or you are just someone who loves an incredible against-all-odds underdog story, this deep dive is going to give you the ultimate edge.
By the time they take the pitch in North America, you'll understand exactly why they are the most compelling narrative of this entire tournament.
So let's unpack how they actually got here first. Because honestly, the sheer physical and emotional toll of their journey directly dictates the kind of team you are going to see on your television screen.
Yeah, the endurance required to survive this specific campaign is just unprecedented. I mean, Iraq's qualification run is officially one for the record books.
Wait, it's actually the longest, right?
The longest ever. They played 21 matches over a period of 28 months. It is the longest qualification campaign ever endured by a national team in the history of the sport.
21 matches. I mean, think about what that actually means for a moment. That is essentially half of a grueling domestic club season.
But spread out over years.
Right. Spread out over years, requiring constant travel across multiple continents, constantly interrupting the players' normal routines. And it all culminated on April 1st, 2026 in Monterrey, Mexico.
The Interconfederation playoff final against Bolivia.
A nerve-shredding 2-1 victory. But just reading that final score doesn't tell you anything about what it took just to get inside that stadium in Mexico. That was an odyssey all on its own.
It really was. To understand the physical and mental state of these players walking onto that pitch, we have to look impartially at the geopolitical backdrop of the region.
Right, because things were really unstable.
Exactly. The team's preparations for this massive do-or-die playoff were heavily disrupted by the ongoing U.S.-Israel war on Iran. This conflict caused severe regional instability. And for the Iraqi football team, the immediate logistical impact was the complete suspension of normal air travel due to widespread airspace closures.
Which just completely shatters any modern concept of sports science or preparation.
Totally.
Instead of a standard, comfortable charter flight, this team of elite athletes was forced into this grueling 3-day overland journey.
Yeah, they had to organize a massive bus convoy.
A bus convoy. They had to navigate complex border crossings into Jordan, sit through checkpoints, and eventually catch a chaotic series of connecting flights just to get to North America.
I mean, try to imagine the stiffness, the cramping, the absolute mental fatigue of sitting on buses for days when you are about to play the most important 90 minutes of your life.
And they still went out there and beat Bolivia. It's wild.
And the reaction back home in Baghdad tells you everything you need to know about what that victory meant.
Oh, the reporting from The Guardian paints such an extraordinary picture.
Right at dawn, traffic across the capital came to a complete standstill.
Thousands of people just waving flags, standing on the roofs of their cars in the middle of the highways.
Yeah, and the street vendors, people who rely on every single daily sale just to make ends meet, they were shouting, "Tea for free!"
Tea for free! I love that detail.
Because the euphoria just totally eclipsed their daily economic reality.
It feels like a direct echo of their historic 2007 Asian Cup win. Football operates as this rare, powerful, unifying cultural anchor for Iraq, especially during times of extreme external pressure or conflict.
Absolutely. And you see that intense national pride reflected directly in their nickname, the Lions of Mesopotamia, or Usud al-Rafidin.
The historical weight of that nickname is profound, right? It has deep, ancient Babylonian roots.
Yeah, if you look at the famous Ishtar Gate from ancient Babylon, it was ornamented with these incredible, imposing bas-reliefs of lions.
Wow.
In that civilization, the lion wasn't just an animal. It symbolized ultimate power, ferocity, prestige, and crucially, the defeat of enemies.
So it was a tangible virtue that the ancients believed could be transmitted to the people.
Exactly. The national team wearing that crest today is a direct continuation of that psychological armor.
So let's put this into perspective for you listening. It's like running an ultramarathon. But right before the finish line, the officials decide to move the tape another 10 miles away, and you suddenly have to run through a torrential storm just to get there.
That's a great way to put it.
How does a collective group of individuals even hold together through a 21-match slog under those kinds of intense, unpredictable external pressures?
Well, emotion and resilience are incredibly powerful fuels, but you just cannot rely on them alone to win World Cup matches against elite opposition.
Right. Adrenaline eventually runs out.
Exactly. To survive that marathon, Iraq actually had to undergo a massive, really painful structural shift in how they play the game. You simply cannot endure that level of attrition playing open, expansive football.
Which means we need to look at what happened halfway through this campaign. Because under their previous manager, Jesus Casas, Iraq was actually playing this really progressive, possession-based, attacking style of football.
They were trying to dictate the game?
Yeah, they even pulled off a historic 2-1 upset against Japan in the 2024 Asian Cup, playing exactly that way. They proved they could look a giant in the eye and play beautiful football.
They did, but playing beautiful football requires a level of consistency that is incredibly fragile, especially under the travel conditions we just discussed.
Right.
So after a surprising and frankly demoralizing loss to Palestine in early 2025, the Iraqi Football Association panicked.
They made a bold move.
A ruthless move. They dismissed Casas and brought in Graham Arnold,
The Australian coach who famously took the Socceroos to the round of 16 in 2022.
That's the one. And Arnold did not come in to just tweak the system.
No, he completely ripped up the floorboards.
He really did. He looked at this team that wanted to attack and rebuilt them into an absolute, unapologetic defensive fortress.
The tactical reports show them utilizing a highly disciplined 4-5-1 or 4-4-2 low block.
And for anyone listening who doesn't obsess over tactical chalkboard jargon, a low block essentially means the team entirely abandons the idea of pressing the opponent high up the pitch.
Right, they just drop back.
Exactly. They drop deep into their own half, prioritizing a compact defensive shape. Arnold's entire system relies on what Screets call exceptional horizontal and vertical compactness.
Okay, let's break that down visually for a second, because if I'm looking down at the pitch from a blimp, what does horizontal and vertical compactness actually look like?
Okay, so imagine taking all 10 outfield players and drawing a really tight imaginary box around them.
Okay, a box.
Vertical compactness means the distance from your deepest defender to your highest forward is incredibly short, maybe 20 or 30 yards total.
Wow, that's tight.
Yeah. And horizontal compactness means the players on the far left and the far right are tucked in closely toward the center circle. You are deliberately surrendering the wings and the opponent's half of the field to create an impenetrable, dense thicket of bodies directly in front of your own penalty box.
So opposing teams simply cannot pass the ball through the center of the pitch.
That's the goal, and the scouting data backs that up. They are brilliant at clearing endless crosses from the wings, and they physically dominate those ugly central duels.
But I have to challenge this strategy for a second. If you play a low block, aren't you just inviting extreme passivity? You were basically telling world-class athletes, here, have the ball for 90 minutes, do what you want with it. Your forwards end up totally isolated 80 yards away from the opponent's goal. aren't you just slowly inviting your own execution? Like,
Yeah.
does a purely defensive absorb and hope strategy actually work at a modern World Cup?
It is the ultimate razor's edge. But from Graham Arnold's perspective, it is cold, grim pragmatism.
Pragmatism, right?
If you try to outpass or outrun elite European or South American teams, you will be dismantled. The low block works if your defensive discipline is absolutely flawless.
But it's a big if.
A huge if. And if you have the specific human elements required to execute ruthless counterpunches, when Iraq finally wins the ball back, they don't try to patiently pass it through the midfield.
They just bypass it entirely.
Yes, launching long, direct aerial balls up to a physical target man. They also rely heavily on maximizing their set pieces, so corners and free kicks where they have a distinct height and aggression advantage.
That transition from defense to attack is fascinating to me because a system like that is completely useless without the right players to pull it off. You could draw all the compact boxes you want on a whiteboard, but someone has to actually run them for 90 minutes.
Exactly.
For Iraq, the absolute veteran anchor of this entire system is their 30-year-old striker, Ayman Hussein.
Oh, he is the literal and metaphorical focal point of their attacks. He plays his club football domestically for Al-Karma,
And he scored 8 goals in qualifying.
including that decisive winner against Bolivia. But you really cannot discuss Ayman Hussein without discussing his backstory.
Yeah, it brings a profound gravity to what he represents every time he challenges for a header. Born in Kirkuk, which is a region heavily affected by war, in 2008 he lost his father to an al-Qaeda attack.
And then 6 years later, his brother went missing.
He had to flee with his remaining family. Football was his literal lifeline out of that environment,
And 9 years ago, he made a public promise that he wanted to lead Iraq to the World Cup.
which is just incredible. And against all statistical probability, he actually did it. When you watch him throwing his body around the penalty box, you are watching a man carrying immense personal and national weight. He is a warrior forged in the hardest possible reality.
He embodies that domestic, battle-hardened resilience perfectly. But what makes this specific Iraqi squad so tactically intriguing is the stark contrast between domestic veterans like Hussein and the totally new generation of European-trained starlets playing right alongside him.
It's like this fascinating contra-clash happening right on the pitch.
Yeah.
Take Ali Jassim. He is just 22 years old, a winger contracted to Serie A's Como under Cesc Fabregas. He was the top scorer at the AFC U23 Asian Cup.
He is the creative spark, the player with the technical dribbling ability to actually unlock a defense when they launch a counterattack.
And you also have Ali Al-Hamadi,
Yep.
a 24-year-old forward playing in England for Luton Town.
And his personal journey mirrors the diaspora experience. He fled the Iraq War as a 1-year-old and grew up in the footballing culture of Liverpool.
He scored the crucial opening goal against Bolivia in that playoff. He brings a highly modern, incredibly fast dynamic to the forward line that domestic Iraqi football simply doesn't produce.
And linking them all together is Zidane Iqbal.
Right, the 23-year-old midfielder.
Playing for Utrecht in the Netherlands, a product of the pristine Manchester United Academy, he is the press-resistant, creative pivot in the midfield.
It's crazy. You have a guy who learned the game, surviving a war zone, receiving passes from a kid who grew up in the Manchester United Academy. Like, how does that synergy even function under pressure?
In Graham Arnold's system, Iqbal's role is arguably the most critical technical bridge on the pitch. When that dense defensive box finally wins the ball back, they are usually trapped deep in their own territory.
Right.
They need someone who won't panic under the immediate pressure of 3 opposing players. Iqbal is the release valve. He has the elite European technical training to shield the ball, turn, and accurately deliver that 60-yard transition pass to launch the counterattack.
I kind of picture it like a massive mechanical slingshot.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, the defense with guys like Hussein tracking back is the heavy base pulling back deeper and deeper into their own territory, absorbing all the pressure, building up potential energy.
And Iqbal is the pouch holding the ball.
Exactly. And the moment he releases it, young wingers like Jassim and Al-Hamadi are the projectiles fired at the opponent's goal. But, I mean, what happens if the opponent presses so relentlessly that the slingshot just snaps? What if Iqbal is smothered and can't find those forwards?
Then the entire system collapses in on itself.
Really?
Yeah, you spend 90 minutes defending your own penalty box until you inevitably make a mistake. Elite teams know this. They will try to suffocate Iqbal the second Iraq wins the ball.
Which kind of brings us to the ultimate reality check here.
We know their tactical identity, we know their profound resilience, and we know the key players.
Now we have to look at what happens when they actually step onto the pitch in North America.
Group I. I'm just going to lay out the brutal mathematical reality according to the Vegas odds makers. Iraq has been given less than a 1% chance to win this group. Less than 1%.
And only a 36% chance to even advance to the knockout stage. It is an absolute gauntlet of footballing royalty.
The schedule really does them no favors. It starts on June 16th at Gillette Stadium in Boston, the critical opener against Norway.
Norway is returning to the World Cup for the first time in 28 years, and they are bringing a literal physical anomaly, Erling Haaland.
Yeah, Arnold's low block is going to be immediately tested by the most ruthless striker on the planet.
And it's not just Haaland, right? It's Martin Odegaard providing elite pinpoint service to him. I have to push back on Graham Arnold here. Isn't putting all your hopes on absorbing pressure against a cyborg like Haaland an incredibly fragile game plan?
It is fragile.
If Norway scores a header in the first 10 minutes, doesn't Iraq's entire World Cup script just get thrown out the window?
If Norway scores early, yes, the low block becomes a trap. Iraq would have to push forward to equalize, leaving massive spaces behind their defense for Haaland to exploit.
Which is exactly what he wants.
Exactly, but look at the alternative. If Iraq tries to play an open, expansive game against Norway, they have a 0% chance of survival. Haaland will tear a high defensive line to shreds.
So it's the lesser of two evils.
Right. Arnold's grim pragmatism dictates that sitting deep, flooding the penalty box with bodies, and trying to physically crowd Haaland out gives you maybe a 10% chance. It is fragile, but it is their only mathematically viable option. They absolutely must take points from Boston to survive.
Because what comes next is legitimately terrifying.
June 22nd.
Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. France, the 2018 world champions, the 2022 runners-up. The odds give France an 88% chance to advance out of this group.
You are dealing with Kylian Mbappe isolating fullbacks out wide and Antoine Griezmann operating in those tiny pockets of space in the middle.
But wait, this is where Arnold's low block might actually be a bizarrely effective weapon, right?
You think?
Yeah, think about it. Mbappe's greatest asset is his world-class transition speed. He wants to kick the ball past a defender and sprint into the open grass behind them.
Oh, I see where you're going.
But if Iraq utilizes an ultra-defensive shape, keeping their fullbacks anchored directly to the edge of their own penalty box, there is no grass behind them. There is no space for Mbappe to sprint into.
That is a brilliant tactical wrinkle.
Iraq will basically try to force France to break them down with intricate passing, effectively neutralizing France's terrifying transition speed.
You neutralize the fastest player on Earth by simply not giving him any Earth to run on.
Exactly. But even if they manage to frustrate France, they still have to face June 26th at BMO Field in Toronto.
Senegal.
The reigning African Cup of Nations champions, led by Sadio Mane.
And depending on the math from those first two brutal games, Iraq might actually be forced to abandon their defensive fortress.
They might have to attack to chase a win to advance.
Which exposes the fatal flaw in the slingshot.
If they open up to attack Senegal, they leave themselves wide open to Senegal's physical counterpressing. Senegal excels at winning the ball high up the pitch and striking before the opponent can even set their defense. So if Iraq abandons the low block, they're playing entirely into Senegal's hands.
Exactly. Graham Arnold said it himself in one of his recent press conferences. He claims all the pressure is on France, Norway, and Senegal. He says Iraq has nothing to lose.
The opening 15 minutes in Boston against Norway are going to be some of the most tense, high-stakes football of the entire tournament. It requires immense psychological discipline for those players not to panic if the game plan is suddenly disrupted by an early goal.
But if there is one thing this specific Iraqi team has proven over the last 28 months, it is that they possess a psychological discipline forged in the absolute hardest of circumstances.
Yeah.
You just cannot quantify what surviving a 21-match campaign, geopolitical disruptions, and a midstream managerial overhaul does to a dressing room. Data models and betting odds do not account for the collective trauma and triumph the squad shares.
The Lions of Mesopotamia are carrying the hopes, the pride, and the very identity of an entire nation to North America. They're armed with the most grueling qualification experience in the modern history of the sport.
They have a fiercely disciplined, unapologetic defensive shape.
And they feature this captivating, unlikely synergy of battle-hardened domestic veterans like Ayman Hussein and brilliant, technical European diaspora talents like Ali Jassim and Zidane Iqbal.
For you listening, this changes how you consume their matches. Everyone loves a good Cinderella story, but you now have the actual tactical insight to understand exactly how the glass slipper is supposed to fit.
Right.
When you watch Iraq line up against Norway on June 16th, you aren't just watching a plucky underdog hoping for a miracle. You are watching a highly structured, meticulously planned us against the world mentality and practice.
You will understand why they're sitting so deep. You will see exactly what Iqbal is trying to trigger on the counterattack.
And you will feel the immense, suffocating pressure resting on every single clearance they make.
So what does this all mean in the grand scheme of the sport? I want to leave you with a final paradigm-shifting thought to mull over before the tournament begins.
What happens if Iraq actually succeeds?
What if they pull off the unthinkable, frustrate the European giants, and advance out of Group I? Could their highly unique formula, fusing domestic players who have lived through the nation's struggles with highly technical, European-trained dual nationals from the diaspora, become the permanent new blueprint?
Could this be the model for developing underdog nations trying to finally break the monopoly of the traditional footballing superpowers?
If Graham Arnold's system works, it forces every developing football nation to completely reevaluate how they scout, how they recruit from their diaspora, and how they build their national identity on the pitch.
It would prove that tactical pragmatism and national resilience can actually topple elite academies.
It all comes back to that ultra-marathon where the officials kept moving the tape. On June 16th, they finally get to cross that starting line in North America, and the whole world will be watching.
It's going to be something else.
Thanks for diving deep with us. Enjoy the World Cup.